1700s that 1776 when they declared independence, right? So where was the white people at? White people was a term in law, and it detail you who they is. We done went over that information already, and that nauseam, right? So when you understand that the illusion was to make you think pale face mean white people, but the white people look like me and you, but they ain't us. But the black people, which was represented by black animal totems, black eagle, was the ones who was lost at sea. You can clearly see that she's from over here.
Go ahead.
Do that look like
you know what? They said that, look, when I go ahead.
You go ahead, Adam.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I say, you know what I found out? I found out that not only was Cleopatra was over here too in Georgia. It's a lot of stuff they like over in New York and Harlem. Harlem has been a matriarch center for thousands of years. That's what they ain't telling us. Like Harlem, like New York, Harlem. It's been a matriarch there. Like, you know, you remember Stephanie Sinclair, like even before her, like going back, like they said that Cleopatra was in New York. Like, and they telling us about Whale over there. I mean, they really twisted us around, man. They really twisted us around. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, so you have what they call victor's history and revisionist history and alternative history.
Go ahead.
The victor's history is what you call the standard narrative of control by the invader. This is what's going to be taught in your educational system, right? The political arena is to beef up the social interaction using politics as the medium. If it wasn't for racist, it wasn't for artificial racist politicians, people wouldn't even know what racism is. Right. Because people wasn't coming out speaking about skin color into the 1800s.
Right.
All of a sudden, after the war, 1812, skin color becomes relevant enough for them to use that as the standard bearer to separate the tribes.
Right.
Right. Now, which tribes is fighting as those dark-skinned, nappy-haired totem clans that they call runaway slaves that came to help the Seminoles in the Seminole Wars? That's their story because they call the Gullahs Seminoles.
Right.
Right. So that's how you know if the Spanish is telling the story versus the tribes. When the tribes identify that war, they call it the Gullah Wars. Pull up Queen Califia so they can see how she looked compared to that statue of Columbia. This is the domestic slave map. Look at the years on there at the top.
I got you.
This is how they was shuffling us on the land, telling us we was coming from Africa.
Too.
Mm-hmm. This is how they was shuffling us around on our own land. So remember that game you used to play in elementary where you spin somebody around while they blindfold and they gotta touch somebody and they be staggering trying to find their way because they dizzy. This is what they was doing to us. Spin us around with a blindfold on. And then, you know, so many tribes had their own language that some of the tribes from the north needed one from the median to translate the tribes' languages from the south. And then they moving us around like this on the land.
Now it makes sense. It makes sense because when you join the military, they do the same thing. When you join the military, they send you to a whole nother, like to the north. It's called disorientation. That's that's what Yaku said that they was gonna do, though.
Yeah, that's part of the technology to make you believe that you came from somewhere else. They take somebody back then from New York, a Shinnecock, drop him off down here with in what would be called Texas now. They don't speak the same language, but they the same people.
Yeah.
And that's how they was telling them they from Africa when they was really from here.
Yep. Damn.
Now, ask yourself a question.
Mm-hmm.
Why did they keep record of this?
Man, yeah, that's a good question now. Why would the suckers who are out to do us keep record? Because it's got to be on record, right? It's got to be part record.
It's part of the record because you're looking at it.
Yeah, it's got to be part of the record of the
and it's not the only map and not the only time frame where they're showing you this.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, now the reason why they have to keep record, we gotta have the right to discover what they did, so that when we talk to the other tribes across the land, they can understand the enemy was fighting and the strategies they used to us against each other. Mm-hmm. Once we understand how it works, it won't work on us no more. That's how you break the spell.
And then come to find out, the Africans, like a lot of the Africans, some of them came over here by themselves. They didn't come over as slaves. They sailed over here as noblemen. Not the dirty moors. Well, I don't know. I can't consider really Mansa Musa.
Well, you got to remember, before Christopher Columbus ever, I've been saying this since the beginning. We was already marrying in the royal families of the Americas with the African royal families.
Right.
For the purpose of blood diversification.
Go ahead.
The purpose of blood diversification is to reduce the risk of birth defects that comes with generation after generation of inbreeding.
Go ahead.
Right? So you have to get outside blood periodically to rejuvenate the blood with fresh blood.
Go ahead.
Right. So now you're talking about how royalty, that we knew how to purify our blood. Go ahead. By using the royalty of other parts of the world, because they all got a different genetic sequence. And when you add new genetic sequences to the blood pool, it reduces the birth defect because it's an ongoing forward progress.
Go ahead.
Right? Instead of tying the DNA up into knots by inbreeding repetitively with no fresh blood from the outside. That's the difference between how we lived as royalty versus how the Europeans raised under the Moors function as royalty. We didn't function the same. On the West Coast, we did the same with Asia. And that's why a lot of the tribes had hollow hair. That trait came from intermarrying with them, and that's called the Lee contract.
That's fun.
Because that was the name of the emperor that was first the general that made the agreement in order for the tribes of the earth to always be able to restore the balance back to the matriarchy. But we don't know this because we don't know our tribal heritage. But the elders in a lot of the families know that when they hear me talking, they know what I'm talking about. And now they can start to talk to the rest of their family about it. But before, it was a death sentence to discuss it.
Right.
So now I got to go find the domestic slave trade map, because I keep telling people they was moving us around on the land, but now they can see the receipt. I didn't make the receipt.
Go ahead.
You can go to Google and pull it up, and this ain't the only one.
Right. It's a fire receipt right here, bro. I ain't gonna lie. There's some stuff right here that like I had an idea about it, but now it gave me more of a visual on okay, the Atlantic slave trade really happened just on the coastline of Turtle Island. It ain't go some of it happened too. But a lot of the Africans, they saying they came from the Ivory Coast, were settled over here by themselves. They wasn't even slaves, like Mansa Musa and Abu Bakr. They came over in 1310s.
Okay, now look at the direction that all of the arrows is pointing. They all pointing from the north to the south.
Yeah.
By land and by water.
Now this another question I got while we got this map up. Will it be safe to say this was done to the animals as well. That the animals got switched from land to land. Like they took elephants from over here, and like I know some of the stuff.
All that happened a couple, probably about a couple thousand years ago, when because the elephant originated over here in the Americas. The camel, all of those. That's how you know that the civilizations of the world spread from the Americas, not the other way around in the out of Africa story.
Right.
If you take the out of Africa story and point all of the arrows back to Africa, you'd be more accurate. It's told in reverse for a reason, because it's called disorientation. The map ain't even, the map is upside down.
Yep. That's what I was
Florida is the elephant trunk.
Go ahead.
But you can't tell because it's upside down.
Go ahead. That makes sense. That makes sense. They switched this shit around, the animals, and then I believe too, some of the food, like they telling us, oh, we didn't eat this, we didn't eat that, and y'all eat this, but it's a lot of things I believe they switched around to where they telling us it's bad for us, but it ain't that it's bad for us. It's the way we cooking it. They reverse how we cook it. We didn't do grease. The French, they bought the grease over. They bought grease and canned. I'm telling you, man. Because I believe that food, like they saying that corn is acidic, but what did we use it for? Because it was native over here. Why would we create that over here? And then we never got no disease by eating it over here for thousands of years. Go ahead.
Corn is a genetically modified wheat stalk.
Go ahead.
The reason why corn is an important staple is the same corn. Carbon is the carbon that make up the human.
Go ahead.
It's corn carbon specifically, no other kind of carbon. That means that the root base to the human constructions, first you had to have corn.
Go ahead.
We know corn is made, what it's made from, because you can do genetic testing on it to show where it come from.
Right. Go ahead.
Right. So how is it that the human is made out of the same carbon as the corn? Who made the corn?
Go ahead.
Right. Then you find out that the corn is originally native to the southwest region of the Americas.
That's right. And we ate it for thousands of years, no disease. Go ahead.
Then you realize why we had mass corn festivals. Corn is a symbol of prosperity to us.
Go ahead.
They want to move you far away from your culture as possible. We got all type of corn.
Go ahead.
Right. We got corn that resemble gemstones, all kind of stuff that we did with the corn. Purple corn, black corn, red corn, green corn, blue corn. We got it all, but you just only know about the yellow corn.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Hey, shout out Maria, man.
One of the names that they use for the colorful corn is they call it Indian corn.
Go ahead.
Right. And now when you look around the world, you find people holding what look like a pine cone, which is actually a corn cob.
Go ahead.
Right. Because they telling you with the caduceus, that's a DNA or genetic factor. So you got the twin serpents around the staff, and then you got them holding the corn. The two symbols is telling you that it's the genetic of the human.
Man, bro, you just made me think about something else. In that papyrus, with Norma and the Twy-mans walking, we got the apron on and everything. Them Twy-man had corn. If corn is indigenous over here, how the hell the Twy-man get it? If they telling us that Columbus is the one that took it over there. Now we can get into that.
Well, let's deal with that, because you also got pharaohs that has cocaine in their blood. They got tobacco. That means they smoked. And then they have strains of marijuana that was only found in the Americas.
Go ahead.
So that means that whatever the pharaohs was doing, they had a connection or a link to the Americas.
They said the finest weed in the world is in California. So you go out to California, to Khalifa land.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Hey, but the
You
thing
can see
is,
if you could pull up a picture of Queen
oh
Califia
yeah,
so
yeah,
we can show them
go
that
ahead, go ahead.
Olympia is just the East Coast version of a Califia queen.
Let me see. Can I find one that's close to that one? This might be a good one right here.
They don't have the exact same headdress, but when you zoom in, you'll see they similar. The facial cranial structure in the poses.
Yeah.
Now notice that she have her stick in her left hand, but
You can see right
Columbia
here.
have it in her right hand.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if you go to the Blue House in California, the Crips wear their hat to the left. But if you go to the Blue House in the Midwest, the folks
That's right.
who are from the Blue House wear their hat to the right. Right? That's because they telling you about the windows. This is mirror flipping.
Hey, look. Yeah, go ahead.
If they was looking at each other, one was looking at the other in the mirror. Look, if one was looking at the other in the mirror, the thing in her left hand would be the same thing it would be in the right hand in the mirror. If the two was standing face to face looking in the mirror. Right. So it's the two sisters, the two Califia on the West Coast and the Columbia out of the DC district. They looking at each other to determine if we gonna return Big Mama back to her seat. And when they finally see each other energetically, Big Mama will have to have found her seat because now the mirror is clear across the land. Right? Now, who set the mirrors up? You remember the last video Tupac did?
Why it's frozen like that? Say that again, Roy. Cut you out on my side.
I said, you remember the last video Tupac did?
I was doing it. Which way you talking about?
How do you want it? You remember he took the baseball bat? Remember he took the baseball bat and broke the mirror?
Yeah. Right. It was the Moors that instituted the paper bull. You got to remember that they look like us.
But they ain't us.
But they're not.
And they know that. That's what the whole Jacob story is about. The supplanter. The one who come to undermine the organic Adama, the earthborn. He come to undermine them and replace them. That's how you gonna promise somebody a land that ain't yours? So he must believe he gonna win in the war.
Right.
That would give him the rulership of the earth. He lost. Now he can go sit on his fez and think about it.
And so the hardest part of hearing the truth is that it sounds stranger than fiction. But you know, if you're a philosopher and you think about life or things or the study of everything about life, I mean, it's got to be quite fascinating to teach this kind of stuff. I mean, this is.
I know sometimes when I first started and I used to be remembering stuff, I used to be like, how the fuck I even know that shit?
But you know, the stories in the Bible are all unbelievable. But in real life, the stories about the Anunnaki and Enki and Enlil and the Sumerians and Thoth and all of that is overwhelmingly more
Sci-fi.
I didn't want to say that, but yeah, sci-fi.
It
Sci-fi.
is. The science fiction is science fact.
Shit.
All of the stories has been being told to us, and the writers, the science fiction writers, who couldn't tell it as a news report, so they gave it to us as a story.
Right.
Science of the fiction.
I want to go back to Black Chief Rock's comment in the chat. He says the mother of, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right, Zinson, but I was thinking the mother of Reascension, Chief Black Rock.
The mother of what?
Reascension.
Reascension.
Because we've lost that ability right now. It's time to get it. That's what this learning, that's what these builds and sessions are about. Opening up that eye, opening up and utilizing your whole body, all the contracts that are put together, your mind, body, and soul, spirit put together, so that you have the ability to ascend.
Another thing too, Rod, earlier back when we was looking at this blue and red veins going up the spine, and you was explaining all of that. That's some deep ass shit, because that's just at one level that shit like that is taking place. So as you would have rose up the spine, I can imagine the tills that you have for what's taking place in this structure. You remember when you talk about the red and blue veins, about the sperm going up?
Because one of them is creating the sperm from the left hemisphere of the brain, which is the father line. That's the blue line. And the other one is creating sperm cells with 2X chromosomes from the right hemisphere for the mother line.